Welcome to my channel. This is the Postal Resource, and I'm Will. I'm going to introduce myself. I am a city letter carrier out of Alabama. I've been doing postal related things for about 7 years. I've been a regular carrier for about 4. And basically the whole point of this channel is to provide some tips, tricks, resources for anyone across the board to use to help them with their journey here at the post office. I know my biggest thing that inspired me was I would go on Google, other YouTube channels, the NALC contract, things like that, and just had the hardest time finding just straightforward information. And I thought to myself, how great would it be to have a resource or a channel, if nothing else, that I could use to look back anytime I need to. So I decided, I might share that with the world. So here we are. My first video is going to be about the edit book. I bring that up specifically because this is kind of how this journey started here with me. I was a CCA and I got told, you don't need to know how to do an edit book. Time passed, years went by, old heads left, carriers retired, people transferred, and before we knew it, our office didn't know how to properly do an edit book. There was all hearsay. And just like if you want it done the right way, there are proper steps and procedures, and that's what I'm here for, to help you out with that. I spoke with management and the union representatives, got training material from both sides, and collaborated all of this information together to bring you this video, and I hope you enjoy it. Either way, let's dive deep into this edit book journey. Let's show you some tips and tricks that you can use that could hopefully make your life easier, your route smoother, and your customers happier. Again, have a great day. All right, let's dive in. Let's start with the basics. What you're gonna need to properly do your edit book is, number one, the most up-to-date edit book. You're gonna need one. Look, you can look in the corner, the right corner, and it will say the current date. We just had a route count in our office, so we had all new edit books printed for us. My most current edit book is 5/26/2025. If you had yours printed today, it would have a more relevant date to where you're at. The second thing you're gonna need is a delivery sequence form. This is the form that you're going to, if you make any adjustments, like say you want your first stop to be your last stop, or just move the order of your route around, you'll need a sheet like this. And thirdly, you'll need a red pen to make any changes. So we're gonna go step by step on what you need to do and how to do it exactly. So let's go ahead and start with, let's set this delivery sequence form aside, and let's just go over the standard edit book itself. All right, so let me go over a couple things with you about this edit book. For those who have never seen an edit book or don't even know where to start, I wanna make this as painless as possible. So let's start with the basic stuff. Like I said, check your date, make sure it's your most current one, because if you're making changes on a old edit book, you're gonna be having a lot of problems when your new labels come in and everything's out of whack, okay? Second, make sure you're on the page you wanna be starting with. I wanna start on page 1 to start this. You can see right here where you have something called a line sequence number. Sequence number 1 is the very first stop on your route. And then if I turn this over, I can see right here that my last page is page 21. But for the sake of this video, I'm gonna start on 1. I'm gonna go through a couple steps, so like I said, try to make this as simple as possible for you. Feel free to pause this, rewind, or make any kind of breaks that you need to make. So let's start here. I'm gonna start with something as simple as, I have an address that is labeled as vacant and I no longer want it vacant, and then I will show you something that's not vacant that you would like to make vacant. So you'll see on here that I already have marks. It says vacant indicator on this row right here. You'll see where I have V's with red slashes through them. At one point, this apartment complex, 500 Annapolis Avenue, apartment 1 through 6, I had only a certain number of tenants in only specific buildings. Well, now every single apartment is full, and I want these people to all be receiving, the every door direct mail. I want to get credit for these boxes if we have a route count. I don't want them saying, oh, he only has this many deliverable boxes, which also affects how much office time I have and things like that. But I won't get into that right now. Let's just focus on this edit book specifically. You'll see on here where it was vacant for apartment 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So what I did was I took my red pen and I took a line through the V in that line. And then you'll see right here Later on my sequence number 9, it says V. Well, that is still vacant, so I'm not going to do anything with that right here, okay? But what I will say is if I go further down here, you're going to see where it says it's another apartment complex. It is 2602, 2604, 2606, 08, and 10. Well, 2602 is now vacant. So all I'm going to do is put a V right there. That just indicates to my management that this box will no longer receive every door direct mail. I should no longer get credit for that box. I don't have a tenant there currently. A lot of people will not mark their apartments vacant because simply if they're filled and unfilled so quickly, it's almost a waste of time because by the time you get your edit books back, someone else has moved in. But this is just a good example of that. I'm going to give you another example. So let's, for example, say 600 Annapolis. It's a house. It's a curb delivery. It tells exactly what kind of delivery it is. So it has a box on the street. Let's say that the person moved out and I ended up putting a green card in their box. And it's been a little while and I've noticed that nobody's moved in there. And I'm going to go ahead and indicate to management that I'm not delivering to that box for a couple reasons. Besides all the ones I've already mentioned, he's going to know that I probably am not going to be stopping at that box and different things like that. So let's say that 600 Annapolis is now vacant. I would simply, under my vacant indicator square, which you can see here, I'll go straight down and I would put a V in my red pen. So that's the first step. So you're like, okay, this is pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. So then there's a couple other things that I was never trained. So I have a couple people that have a box on the street and they had some issues where they didn't really trust their neighbors, for example. So they went and got a P.O. box at the office, and we want to make sure that their mail is going exactly where it's supposed to go. So on here, on the address sort, which is the next line over, you can put what's called the T, which means throwback, and that indicates to not only the mail sequence, but also to the clerks, that this mail is not supposed to go to here. It's not supposed to go in the DPS anymore. It's supposed to go somewhere else. It's getting thrown back to, and then over here, under additional information, you can write P.O. Box. And if you know the P.O. Box number, you can speak to your clerks about that. If the clerk knows, you can put P.O. Box, and then you can put the P.O. Box number. And what that does is it helps you make sure all your mail is going where it's supposed to go. You're not having to pull mail out or toss mail back in your throwback later. When you get back to the office, you're not having to hand it to your clerk or in your office, walk it over to the P.O. Box and put it in there yourself. Every office has their own parameters of what they do. Also, since we just mentioned the additional information, if you want your labels to say something specific, like for example, at 610 Annapolis, I have a church on there. And when I'm not working, it may make it easier for my subs or CCA or PTF to have an indicator, where that church is, for example. So on my route, 610 Annapolis, if you look over, I have in additional information, I have Church of Christ. And it indicates to them, okay, there you go. There's Church of Christ. All right, so now I'm going to go over something with you that I didn't know. And it kind of sparked my interest of why I wanted to make these videos. So I have certain deliveries, and I mentioned the Church of Christ for a reason, because what sparked it was an additional church on my route. So the church on my route has a problem with people stealing the packages. If they're not, let's say on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, they don't have service, they don't have anything like that. So what happens is, at one point, you know how the Amazon packages, it says, leave if the person's not there, don't matter. And they had a box delivered to the church full of Bibles, and unfortunately that box was stolen off the stoop of that church. And then they went and they posted a sign on the door, no deliveries on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and management told them, I don't care what that sign says, you need to deliver that Amazon on Sunday, because that's the policy we have with Amazon. And again, a package was delivered, they was stolen as well, and a 360 case happened. So this channel, besides teaching you how to do an edit book, it's also to help you avoid situations, avoid IIs, avoid situations that just don't have to happen, and make your life a lot smoother. So, for example, that address, let me skip ahead to the page it would be on. On my route, it is on Montgomery, which is a little deeper in my route. And so let me get there real quick. I have a lot of Montgomery addresses if you can't see that here. So I'm almost there. And I believe it's going to be on page 11. Okay. I'm going to line this back up. So my church specifically is, as you can see here, I have it indicated, which helps me out in my edit book as well, locate things like that. So Methodist Church. It's at 701 Montgomery, Methodist Church. So I have an issue where I want them to not deliver packages. In fact, I don't even want them sending Amazon packages whatsoever on those days to avoid that situation. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put an indicator on this line here that tells them I do not want anything on here coming on these days. So on the status line here, on the 701, I'm going to put what's called an H, and it's called a holdout, okay? You can write holdout or an H, whatever your management prefers for 701. And I'm going to put, I don't want it for Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. No more deliveries on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. This right here is going to help you guys more than you realize. You can make your route specific to your customer. Now I can go to my customer once I get my new edit book, once they've made the adjustments, once you see that kind of happening where they're not delivering on those days anymore. And you can go into them and say, hey, I know you have these issues. Since I care about you as a customer and a person, I went ahead and took measures to make sure that doesn't happen anymore, because your business is very important to us. And I try to put myself in their shoes. Like if that was happening to me and somebody could fix it, and even if I didn't know they could fix it, if they went up to me and told me that they fixed it because they cared about what's going on with me, that would make a big difference in my life. And like, here's another way I look at it. You're going to make mistakes as a carrier. Everyone makes mistakes. We're all humans. And whenever you do make a mistake, that customer is going to be more likely to be understanding and forgiving of those kind of mistakes if they see that you have their best interest in mind. So I'm not going to do it again because, well, actually I will do it again. So I'm going to go back to the beginning, right? And I have a school, for example. We were just talking about schools and churches and stuff like that. I have a school that's obviously it's not open on Saturdays and Sundays. So I don't need Amazon packages coming there and being delivered there on those days. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So I'm going to flip to the page that the school is on, and I'm going to look, and I'm going to look to see where that school is. Well, I know that the school's address is 900 Annapolis. And see, I have, again, indicated on here under additional information, the name of the school. I do that for markers for myself, and I do that for on my labels themselves to have indicators. And you'll see on here, it already has an H. Here is a great example of what I just mentioned, holdout, but it's not indicating what the holdout is exactly. So in my office, they have a holdout that indicates their packages don't go out to them whatsoever. But I spoke to the secretary and I spoke to the principal, and that's not what the holdout's supposed to be. So the job is partially done. There is supposed to be a specific holdout, but it doesn't indicate anywhere what the holdout is. So I'm going to go ahead and correct that so it starts doing the right thing. I also have an issue that because it has an H with no indicator, my scanner doesn't load it into my scanner. So I scan the package because I want to get credit on my load, my load truck, and it just goes, does the noise that it makes when it's not loaded, basically. Well, if I'm carrying these packages out here Monday through Friday, I want to get credit for those packages. So I'm going to keep the H for holdout. I'm going to go ahead and mark it so they know I made a change. And I'm going to add Saturday and Sunday on here only. So hold Saturday and Sunday only. That lets my manager know, okay, there is a holdout, but it's only holding on Saturday and Sunday. And on their management side, this is what I'm talking about, I spoke to management. So he pulled up the form. I mean, it's not a form. He pulled up the website that they do all the corrections on, and he showed me that there's indicator boxes that they can click for specific days. So now he knows to click holdout and only Saturday and Sunday. That's a great thing right there. So with that being said, you're going to have other things in your edit book that you can do: vacancies, holdout, throwbacks, things like that. Those are common sense things that you're going to go through your route. And what I would recommend you doing on a slow day, if you have light mail, is bring your edit book with you. And you can kind of, if you have any, like, I'm not sure if this is vacant, I'm not sure if I want to do this, or if you hit an address that's just something's messed up about it, or you want to make a change, you have your edit book with you so you know, okay, I'm right here. I can pause for a second. There is no street standard, which means I can take a second to properly take care of my customers. Put my vehicle into park. I'll go ahead and hit my e-brake. It's a little warm here in Alabama right now, so I'll leave my vehicle running, but that way I don't have to worry about my foot slipping off, a rollaway or runaway or something like that. And I can pull out this with my red pen, or I can make a note to tell myself later, if I don't have this edit book with me, to make this change. And that way you're kind of making sure that everything's good to go, you're being safe as possible, and you're servicing your customers properly. The next thing I'm going to show you how to do here in just a moment is the delivery sequence form. All right, the delivery sequence form. When I was first showed this, it was completely bizarre to me because I just could not grasp it whatsoever. I went home, I struggled with it, I didn't know. Keep in mind, half of our training at the post office is so sped up because they want to get you on the street that they barely run through it, or you don't even know what questions to ask because you've never done it before, you've never hands-on done it before, and you get home and you're completely lost, which is what kind of inspired this video as well, because I was trying to remember something before and I had to go back to my management, review the training that we had again, and I thought to myself, how nice would it be for me just to go look at the video on my own time, because I have a bunch of kids and I work all the time and they do sports and etc. I don't always have time to do something at a normal, like, traditional time. It'd be nice for me on my own schedule to be able to go look up this information. Okay, so let's get back to what I was talking about. Delivery sequence form, what this is for, how to do it, and how it benefits you. So I'm gonna turn this sideways simply so I can write it, and then I'll straighten it out so you can see it. So my unit is gonna have a different zip code than you. So what you'll do here is you'll write your zip code here, okay? And what route number you're changing. I am city 3, so I'm gonna do city 3. You'll put the date that you're working on it. It is June 9th right now, so I'm gonna put 6/9/2025 right here. And contact information. Well, I'm Will Brown, that's me. I want the management to talk to me if they have any questions about this, because I may make a mistake and they need to know who to talk to. If it's a new manager or such, you can add your telephone number on here. They don't pay our phone bills, so they don't have to, and you don't have to answer their phone calls, but keep in mind that you want them to fix it correctly. So make yourself available if they call you, is what I'm trying to say here. Okay, so what part that I struggle with the most is I didn't understand what exactly I needed to do. Whenever I turn a form like this in, I don't have to turn in my edit book to make a sequence change. Okay, so let's continue by saying I didn't understand what I was supposed to do on this sheet. I thought I could just put the one change I wanted to make, or I didn't even understand how to make that change. And I didn't understand what the management needed from me. So basically they need to know for your full route, the sequence numbers in order. So even if you're just changing one sequence number, you need to have all your sequence numbers listed. That sounds daunting, but I'll kind of break it down easier for you. It's not, it's pretty straightforward. So in my route book, let's just go there, okay? On page 21, that's my last page, okay? My last sequence number is 724. which means I have to account for 724 sequence numbers. You're like, probably thinking like I thought, oh my God, that's gonna take forever to write 724 sequence numbers. But that's not what they want you to do. Unless you're completely changing the order of every single address, you're never gonna do that. So let me break down what's actually gonna happen here, okay? So on my route, for example, okay, let's say I wanted to move my giant complex of apartments, okay? But I wanted everything else to stay the same, okay? I want my apartments that are in Montgomery to move to the very back of my route. That's everything else to stay the same because and the reason why I want to do this is because I have a blue box there and I want to, it makes no sense to go to that area twice in one day. So I want to make my life easier. I'm gonna do my full route. I'm gonna do that apartment complex. I'm gonna scan that blue box because I'm already standing right there by it. So this is how you do that. Let me break that down for you. I want my full route to stay the same except for that. So let's first look in my edit book to see where my apartments are even at. My apartments don't even start until sequence number 293, okay? So I don't need to change anything until that part here, okay? So what I need to tell my manager is my first address that it goes to, I need it to be sequence number 1, because I'm not changing anything. And it needs to go all the way to the address right before that apartment complex. Well, before the apartment complex, it is 292 right here. So I need them to stay the same. So I would put 292, and I'm on city 3. So all that's saying is addresses 1, sequence number 1 through sequence number 292 is going to stay exactly the same. No changes are made. Well, after that, normally my apartments would happen, okay? I don't want that to happen. What I want to happen is the address right after my apartments to be the next address, okay? So what I need to do is I need to find the next address after my apartments. And if you could see, because I'm flipping so many pages, my apartments is a lot of apartments, okay? So you're probably thinking, oh my God, I'm having to move so many apartments. Well, it's true, but it's not that complicated, okay? I'm looking on here, and my very next address after my last apartment is line number 412. So 412 needs to go next, okay? And it's gonna go all the way through. I'm not changing nothing else, keep in mind, the very end of my route, okay? So the very end of my route is, let me flip to that page here. It's page 21, like we discussed earlier. And my very last box on my route is 724. 724 on city 3. So right now, let me explain to you what's going on here. My line of sequence in my deliveries, I'll start at the same first box. I'll travel all the way through to the box right before the apartment started, like normal. And then it tells my postmaster that the next box I want to go to is sequence number 412, which simply means the next box I want to go to is the one right after my apartments. The reason why it's such a big jump on my page is my apartments are big. But let's say your apartments are only 4 boxes, it would be 4 sequence numbers later. It's not that complicated. And again, I don't want anything to change from that box after my apartments to the very end at that point. So I'll put the very last sequence box here. Okay, and then remember I mentioned to you that after my last box, that's when I wanted the apartments to happen, okay? So what I need to indicate next is the first box of my apartments needs to go next. So, okay, so let's go back to my apartments. Like I said, it's right in the middle of my route, so I have to flip ahead to that page, okay? And it should be 293 because my last sequence number was 292 before, and they have to stay in order, okay? So let's check that. Let's make sure I'm correct. So 292, so it should be 293, which I was correct. My first box of my apartments is 293. So I'm gonna put, that's the next box I want after the last box on my route. I want 293, okay? And then I want my full apartments to go there, make sure I don't miss anything. So I need to find the last box of my apartment. Well, looking after here, it's gotta be 411 because that's where I started back up at. So let's double check to make sure that's true, okay? And I'm gonna go over this with you like after I write it all down so you kind of understand, okay? So let's look at right here. My last box of my apartments is indeed 411. So I would write 411 on City 3. And that's all of my changes. So let me explain exactly what this looks like, okay? So now, I'm gonna move this out of the way. This is how my route will now run, okay? I'll start at box 1 or line sequence 1 that I'll always start it at. I will go all the way through sequence number 292, which is the box before my apartments, okay? After the box my apartments, I will pick up at the box after those apartments because I'm not going to do the apartments anymore. That sequence number is 412, which I'm getting these sequence numbers off the side of here. Every address, you're not going to write what address it is. It's noted by a sequence number, okay? So let's go back to what I was saying. I'm going to start at the beginning at 1 and go through 292, which is the box before my apartments start. I'm pulling the apartments away, so I need to go to the box after the apartments next, which is 412. I'm not changing anything after that to the very end of my route. I'm going to put the very last sequence number of my route at 724. I'm going to indicate what route it's on. It's on City 3, okay? After that last box, I want to do my apartments because they're by that blue box. And it's coincidentally, it's close to that last box, so I'm not deadheading or anything. That's why I'm doing that. Then I'm going to go ahead and put the first box of the apartment numbers, which the sequence number is 293, and the last box of the apartments is 411. The reason why I have it written like this is because you have to indicate to management or whoever's doing your adjustments, they have to account for every sequence number in your route. This accounts for every sequence number in my route. So now, when I go to my manager and I wanted to make the changes we talked about, I wanted to do vacancies, holdbacks, throwbacks, vacancies, holdouts, throwbacks, things like that. And I also wanted to change the order that my route ran in. So now I have the sequence form to turn in with it. I can paperclip it together or staple it or however your management prefers. And I can turn them in both together. And what that's gonna do is you're gonna have a date for when this happened right here. You can take a picture of this yourself so you have one for your records. And if your management's not properly doing it within a time frame, then you can indicate, well, I turned this into you. Let's say I turned it in today on the 9th of June. It's been 2 weeks. Have you submitted it yet? Oh no, I forgot. Okay, great. I'm glad we're on the same page. I appreciate your time. And if they have, then they can indicate to you what the update is. So edit books are really daunting. It's really confusing if someone just hands you a book and a sheet and they just expect you to know how to write these numbers, because I didn't know how to do it and I didn't understand how to do that. And someone had me marking all over my edit book and I was handwriting on a sheet of paper what physical address is, and then my management was having to figure out what the sequence number was based off the address that I wrote down. I've had other situations where some of my boxes came in like out of order. So we did a route count and some of my boxes for some reason came back out of order. Well, it let me write if sequence number 3 is supposed to be 1, I put 3 first. Then I put the next one that's supposed to be in that order. So I appreciate your time today, and I know this is a lot of information, and that's the reason why I'm doing it in a video, so you can rewind, start, stop, and do different stuff like that. I appreciate your time if you made it to this part of the video. I know it was a lot of information. I know you don't know me. Hopefully we can get this relationship going and you can trust each other. If you have any questions, concerns, feel to reach out to me via in the comments. You can email me on thepostalresource@gmail.com. Again, my name is Will.